as for canoeing, going down a river in a boat, just traveling a river down a river is the best way to travel, in my opinion. It gets you to places that you just couldn't get otherwise. You can sneak up on wildlife in a canoe, that you can night paddle, you can travel underneath a full dome of stars on glassy water across big crossings. The amount of experiences that I've had that just verge on the sublime in glassy water and, sunrise or sunset is just countless at this point.
Welcome back to the 10 Adventures podcast. Today we're talking about deep wilderness and survival. Here to share his story and exploring the wilderness is Maxim Budnick, an outdoorsman who has a pretty spectacular YouTube channel that chronicles his remote adventures, often in the Canadian wilderness. Hi, Maxim. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk with you. You've put out some just stunning YouTube videos, and I was mentioning before the show, the one you did, I think, 2 videos ago of the Northwest Territories was just spectacular. And I think for a lot of us, we've heard about the Northwest Territories, we've read about it, but to actually show just the diversity of that landscape was really powerful.
It was my favorite trip I think I've ever done. Yeah, it was just honest, just presenting it that way. Everything about it was honest, and it was a mind-blowing landscape, and it's such a pleasure to be able to bring people on that journey as well. So, yeah, I agree.
It's also one of the few places that, like, it still is kind of as it was 1,000 years ago. There's some development, but it's kind of like this untouched wilderness, which a lot of your videos kind of touch on this, but that one was really remote. You were days from the nearest settlement in a lot of, or longer than that in a lot of the case.
Yeah, it's not cheap getting out there. And I wish more people had access to doing that, but it's also why it is the way it is. It's complicated, it's expensive, and it's absolutely spectacular. My only regret was just not doing it sooner. I honestly wish I was a little bit more reckless with my money earlier on and just, I said, screw it, I'm going. That's how I feel. So I should have went 5 years earlier.
Yeah, it's a really special place. Now, I'm really interested. You're obviously an accomplished outdoorsman. What was your journey to falling in love with the outdoors?
I can't give a revelatory sort of answer. It's more, I would say that it would be more of a dispositional thing that was well cultivated more than anything. I always had maps on my wall. I was always fascinated by maps. I always collected National Geographics. I took all the little foldouts, put them on my wall. I had the luxury of going to kids' camp and a family cottage and was introduced to canoe trips early on. Just standard things that was well fertilized with my personality. And I don't remember a time in which I wasn't interested in going on an adventure.
It's kind of the classic Canadian. There's a big chunk of us that just grew up where every summer you're out camping or hiking or canoeing or just exploring the wilderness. And like, I know, here in Western Canada, a lot of us grow up just assuming that everybody has this all over the world, but we're kind of in this fortunate location where we have thousands of square kilometers of wilderness, often within an hour of where we live. And it's hard for a lot of people. They can never experience this, beautiful wilderness and tranquility that we get to experience almost on a daily or weekly basis.
It's really something that even to this day that I am in understanding more and more. I have a few people who live close by, like new immigrants to Canada, and I pound my fist on the desk. I say, this is something, if you want to experience Canada has to offer the best things that Canada has to offer. It's endless tracts of wilderness. Well, not endless, but enormous amounts. And it's not just isolated little pockets. It's, you kind of get to a point and it's just the north. And yeah, and back to the Northwest Territories, with rivers like that, there's not many places in the world where you can do a trip like that in the mountains that, and, you know, especially with canoeing too, because, you know, if you're going through the mountains and there's a lot of topographical elevation loss, there's gonna, you know, going on an expedition with a canoe, being able to bring all that equipment and traveling all that distance through the mountains, there's quite a it's quite like a very rare geographical quality, because usually the rapids, like, you know, the Fraser River in British Columbia, that's not you know, the rapids are enormous. So there's very few places in the world where you can experience the wilderness like you can in Canada. And yeah, I mean, just so grateful for it. It's the biggest point of pride in my in our nation.
You have these great videos. A lot of them are done in canoes. You talked a little bit about canoes just now. Um, what makes it such a special way to explore, and especially for people that haven't done one? So people who have gone backpacking or, just done a bunch of wilderness camping. What's the biggest change going on a canoe that just makes it so special?
This is a pretty easy question for me. Like, you can begin with, you can go on a backpacking trip from a canoe. You can't go on a canoe trip from a backpacking trip. You can use a canoe to get you to a backpacking trip, you know, just like my brother and I did in the Northwest Territories. We did a few sort of hiking trips just up into the mountains from the river. You can bring, 1,000 pounds of gear. The unique geography of Canada lends itself to the canoe, and in particular, the Canadian Shield, which is, for those who don't know, and I'm sure most people who listen to this podcast would know, the Canadian Shield is this geographic area of Canada that is about 50% of Canada's landmass, that is the largest exposed Precambrian bedrock basically in the world. And it happens to have all these little lakes on it, thousands upon thousands of lakes. And the best way to traditionally traverse that land is from a canoe. If you're a Aboriginal person who wanted to fish on the shores of Lake Superior in the summer, and wanted to you migrate into the interior of Ontario in the winter, you bring your family and all your stuff via canoe. Walking through the forest just was not an option with all that material. And so the canoe goes hand in hand with the landscape, and that's an inheritance, I think, that we forget, but it's just something that's very strong still here, and it's something that I'm very aware of as we go on canoe trips around, because it just you kind of feel more, especially here, you feel more connected with the history and the culture. Um, as for canoeing, going down a river in a boat, just traveling a river down a river is the best way to travel, in my opinion. It gets you to places that you just couldn't get otherwise. You can sneak up on wildlife in a canoe, that you can night paddle. You can travel underneath a full dome of stars on glassy water across big crossings. The amount of experiences that I've had that just verge on the sublime in glassy water and, sunrise or sunset is just countless at this point. And yeah, I mean, sorry to be long-winded about it, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other points in there, but yeah, I mean, there's just so many things that you can do with a canoe. It's like an expedition platform. You can go for months in a canoe, where you just couldn't do that hiking.
Your videos do a great job of showcasing Eastern Canada. And, I think of Eastern Canada, I think of the big cities and the suburbs, but you go and get into real wilderness there in Ontario and in Quebec. Why do you think people don't know, outside of, probably Eastern Canada, they don't know about the beauty of that part of the world? Why do you think it's still kind of a secret?
I guess it would be like secret to who. It's certainly not a secret to people who live in Toronto. But I think we all live in our own bubbles, and um, I would say to, are you from Western Canada?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now, yeah. So, your vision is clouded by all those beautiful mountains that you have over on that side of the country, and it's hard to look past them because they're so beautiful. And so I'm not saying particularly like you obviously, Richard, but I say to my cousins, hey, like, listen, Ontario has got something to offer too, right? And it's an intimate sort of beauty. It's not grandiose. It doesn't smack you in the face. You kind of need to enter it. You need to access it through the back country. It's very much a place that you need to kind of work to get at it a little bit more to kind of unlock the power of it. And so I would say, yeah, I would just say it just requires more effort to be brought aware of the remarkable beauty of the Canadian Shield. And the best way to access it is the canoe. Again, to go back to that. So I'm not trying to to blame you, but yeah, it is a common thing out. Like once you go into Western Canada, as soon as you get past the Alberta border, it's like Ontario. Like, what you doing out there?
It does have this, like, tranquil beauty in the videos that and, um, I've never explored that part of the world, but it's like, "Oh, this would be a really cool place to go." And I guess one of the questions, where are some kind of, like, some good introductory locations for people that maybe wanna start canoeing, wanna, not get too far away? Are there some, like, kinda common parks or locations where it's like, "Oh, this is a good place," find a guide, find a trip, but this is kind of like an entry point into the beauty of canoeing in Eastern Canada.
Yeah, I'll give you some pretty standard answers for that. I would simply, the best way to start is in the summer, in warm conditions, in a place like Algonquin or Killarney. And that's just a very sort of, if you're familiar with the areas and you're experienced with the areas, I mean, they're outstandingly beautiful. But that's just like for the infrastructure. You know what I mean? I'm a big believer in taking baby steps, and that would, yeah, that would be the best place to do it. Now, I get in and out of canoe. I haven't flipped a canoe just by like in the middle of a lake, since I don't know, but people do, and you just gotta, you just want to kind of just ease into it, understand that you gotta step in the center of a canoe, and just getting the basics right with canoeing. Don't, not paddling on any really big lakes, and just kind of just like anything in life, just having a good just being cautious around big lakes and cold water. And just like, I would just say the infrastructure is best in those two places. Now, if you have a canoe that you have access to, and there's a bunch of other places that you can go, like the Kawarthas, like Quetico would be a step up where you get that real wilderness experience. It would be simple, like relatively simple, because there's a lot of you can go for days. I went for 10 days and I didn't see a person in Quetico, and the paddling was relatively simple. But if you're a very like brand new beginner, maybe you don't even have a ton of experience in the wilderness, I would say Killarney or Algonquin would be the best places to go.
Your videos often talk about bushcraft and, that leads into survival in remote locations. Can you maybe talk a little bit about how you approach survival when you're planning or on a trip far from help?
I always have redundancies. I, I'm my number one, two, and three goals basically, don't get injured out there. Um, so like how I think about it is that there's very seldomly uh a danger in which I haven't already sort of fussed over and thought about contingency towards. I'm a big believer in just getting your logistics right, and then your trip. just goes way smoother. It's hard to answer that question in a way because it's like I just know what like all the dangers are, I guess, and like how I would, like if I'm going to a new place, that's when I really have to dig in and do a lot of research and sort of just understand, if there's avalanche danger or, and there's a certain type of animal I need to be aware of.
I'm interested in, going on an expedition with all your camera gear versus just doing something for fun on your own. Is it a different experience for you? Can you still savor it? Is the enjoyment knowing that you're creating something at the end? Because even for me, I find often I just forget to take photos. I'll go on a great backpack and I'll come back with 3 photos. I'm like, just so in the zone. I got a photo of sunrise one day and our tent one day, and that's it. I apologize to my wife. I'm like, I got nothing.
Yeah, there's definitely downsides, but I would say net it is just an overwhelmingly positive experience for a number of reasons. Sharing it is one. It's just such a beautiful experience to be able to share it with the world and get positive feedback. But there's so many things when you're filming that it kind of when you're in the filming mindset, you notice things that you wouldn't otherwise. You wake up at sunrise when you would sleep in. You stay up to do astrophotography when you would have just been sleeping. You really push for those beautiful moments. You do that extra hike even though you're tired. You look for the macro shot with the tiny little mushroom. And yeah, and then there's the satisfaction of getting the shot itself and kind of piecing this puzzle all together in your mind and telling a story through that. It's just incredibly satisfying. So I would say that if I had a no YouTube channel anymore, that I would still want to film. Um, and actually, I would be missing something. Though it would be nice every once in a while not to film. Um, It's nice when I, like, paddle and there's, like, not a camera right in front of me, and it's like, "Oh, wow, it's, like, pretty clear out here." There's not, like, all this microphones and stuff. I'm not balancing. I'm not worrying about landing my drone in the water, which I've done before, you know, and then it becomes a little bit of a sometimes, yeah, at sunset or golden hour when you're really you're hustling. It would be nice to sort of settle down, but when you're shooting, there's like a list of like 3 things going because you might have the drone up, the time lapse going. You need to get the connective tissue shot of you putting the kettle on the fire, and yeah, so it's not necessarily the same uh experience, but I love it enough that it's totally worth it. And I get enough outdoor time anyways, because there's a lot of time in between just filming where, you can enjoy yourself. So
You have some videos where you're challenging yourselves with pretty extreme circumstances. I can think of one where you're camping in -30. What do you learn about yourself when you go out and do these really challenging, survival, expeditions or weekends?
well, on that one in particular, I learned that I can camp without a sleeping bag at -30. Kind of exactly what the title says. And I'm not trying to, yeah, I got excited about that idea. It excited me because I didn't know. I had a contingency, of course. I had ways of bailing out. I always do that. Like I can't look my wife in the eye if I don't. I don't want to die out there because that could seriously be a dangerous situation if I didn't have contingency. But yeah, I found out that that's something I can do, and I can do it quite reasonably. And that would be the number one thing I came away with, and it's it was one of those things where in that video in particular, and the 100 kilometers without food video, where I kind of came away with this feeling I just got a gold star, where I just that's a notch in my belt, and I kind of there's the pride and the satisfaction of doing something that you didn't know that you could do. And now I have the confidence that I know I can do it. So yeah, it was just a tremendously satisfying experience.
Your videos are really popular, and I always think, you're out in kind of this deep wilderness shooting these videos, and then hundreds of thousands of people are back in their condos or their homes watching the videos, but not a lot of them will go in and go into the deep wilderness. And I've always been wondering, what is this disconnect of people are interested and they're watching, people go into the wilderness, but maybe they don't do it themselves. And you've obviously interacted with lots of people who watch your videos. And do you have any insight about why these, videos of, the outdoors and wilderness are so popular, even amongst people who maybe don't go into the outdoors?
Yeah, I have definitely a good sense for why. Um, because I have been that person myself. I lived on and off 8 years in New York City and other cities around the world, including Toronto and in Europe, etc. Where I didn't have a car. I didn't have easy access to the wilderness, and being somebody who really loves nature, um, I didn't feel connected in that way, and it provided that connection for me, watching other people's content. Um, so I've been there, and honestly, it's one of those amazing things where before I started this YouTube journey, or at least when I was starting it, I thought that it might be a little bit of a selfish endeavor. Not selfish, that's the wrong way to say it, but I didn't necessarily think I was contributing to the world just by putting out YouTube videos. But over time, reading the comments and just the relentless sort of feedback of, I'm a 75-year-old man who used to do trips like this that I can't do anymore. Thank you so much for bringing me to this place. Or I'm a disabled person. I just lost the use of my legs. And, um, like I'm doing surgery and all these personal stories where, thanking me, not to, scratch my own back, but it's kind of overwhelming at times. And I'm bringing people nature at the end of the day, and I'm bringing them to a place they might never go. And yeah, it's become this thing where it's extremely satisfying and filled with purpose. Where what could be, in a way, what could be more important than giving people a piece of nature when they might not have it? I mean, obviously doctors and other professions such as that, but like it's yeah, and I'm not trying to, you know, aggrandize myself. And I certainly didn't go into it that way, um, but yeah, no, it's kind of filled me with this sense of purpose of, no, I am doing something good for the world. Because yeah, because just the enormous amount of feedback that I get. And I would say the through line for my videos that I try to keep in mind, I don't always adhere to it, but I always try to keep in mind is therapy. I want it to be therapeutic. I want somebody from the end of a long day of a stressful day of work just to kind of put it on, kind of commune with nature a little bit, you know, uh, maybe, watch a sunrise, sunset, just kind of detach from their world a little bit, but in a healthy sort of, um, yeah, wholesome way. And, maybe feel a feeling that they haven't felt since childhood, etc. But yeah, that's my goal. And, yeah, it's a long-winded way to say that, people don't necessarily have a lot of nature in their life, and that there's a big market for it.
I feel like there's you're showing people a different way to live, and we all kind of go down this path and we get into this lifestyle. And I think people, you kind of alluded to it, you forget that there's this way of exploring the world and being in nature. And not everyone can do it on such a regular basis, but I think it lets people know, "Oh, hang on, I can just go and do a trip like I dreamed of when I was reading the National Geographic when I was 12," or this is something, "Oh, people are doing this. I think I might be able to do it." And I think it gives people a nudge to, reconnect with, kind of a more youthful part of their personality, or, reconnect with nature in a different way that's really tough. As you said, when you're living in a big city, it's hard to find real nature. And I think what your videos do is let people, see that, oh, hey, here's a regular type person that's able to do all this. Maybe this is something I can start thinking about, and, building goals for themselves around doing similar trips.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's actually something my brother has been super successful at. He's been very, very successful at bringing new people into camping, because he's brought people along in their journey. And for those who don't know, my brother has a YouTube channel, Xander Budnick. He's much bigger than myself, and I kind of got into it through him. I got him into camping, but he got me into videography. And at first, like helping him out, you know, watching his videos, he just kind of everything was out on the table, like, oh, I don't know how to do this. Where I might have been a little bit more reticent to explain my describe my ignorance in a video that way, but he kind of let the experience of, like, I don't know how to, set this up, or I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm figuring it out. And that has been, um, just a very amazing way for people to be like, "Oh, like, I can do this too." And, yeah, it's been quite amazing. A few times, we've, met a few people, well, actually a lot of people, where, at the outdoor show in Toronto, there's a bunch of people who said, never camped before, watching Xander's video or my video, and it's, yeah, extremely gratifying to bring that to people's lives, because I mean, going outdoors is one of the most meaningful things, and just a cornerstone of my life. And if you can bring that to somebody else, I think that's super meaningful.
You do some videos where you actually do them with your brother, and I'm interested. You're kind of on this journey separately, but at times together. It's kind of a similar path. How has becoming creators focused on the outdoors? How has that changed your relationship?
Xander and I have just an amazing thing going. He's extremely lucky to have me, and I'm extremely lucky to have him. Um, I was indifferent to his YouTube journey in the beginning. I kind of was skeptical at first. I didn't understand that you could make a living being a YouTuber, and I was kind of skeptical of his approach at first. I thought he wanted to do something like, it was just kind of, it takes time to figure out, but it was my fault, right? And I didn't understand it. And this was, 6, 7 years ago. And so I was very brutal with him, saying, like, don't do that, do this, especially because I was much more of a camper than he was. But he definitely benefited from me, from my honesty, and me caring. Because, there's lots of people who will look at your video and say, "Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's nice. That's a nice video." Yeah, like, they don't care enough to say, like, "Hey, listen, this is nice, but I think you could do a lot better." Like, go back to do an edit, and then after you've brought that edit, like, say, like, "No, do it again." And I mean? It takes, like, the very, very few people in your life who will be able to do that, and Xander will do that for me, and I'll do that for him. So that's been a hugely understated, way in which we help each other out. It's just that relationship we have, in which we can honestly we have each other's best interest in mind, and we're basically consultants for each other. Um, and so, we're always, we're business partners, even though we don't have any, like, you know, accounts attached. Or, he constantly throws ideas past me, and I constantly throw ideas past him. He has a better sense for some things than I do. I have a better sense for some things than he does. One thing that I've learned a lot from Xander is, because I have a tendency. One of my faults would be to be a little bit too much of a perfectionist. and that has definitely gotten in my way in in my life. And Xander is just a master of good enough, and on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And that I've learned that, and that's been a hard, long lesson for me. But Xander's kind of helped me a long way on that journey. There's just so many things with a YouTube video that you could do color grading, you could, with your filming, the audio might be wrong. Every single time at the end of a video, I'm just completely exhausted and just kind of burnt out from it. And instead of saying like, "Oh, I'm just gonna edit it for another week," like it's good to have Xander be like, "It's good enough. Put it out. On to the next thing." And yeah, we help each other out a lot. And then when we go on each other's videos, it's much of the same thing. Like Xander does these kind of humorous skits, and I'm often a sounding board in the middle of the video, be like, "Oh, try this, try this, try that," because there's not a lot of people who will be able to understand a half baked idea and can say like, "Okay, well, you could do. There's 100 different ways to do that wrong, but there's maybe 5 ways to do that right." Where a lot of people would be like, "Ah, don't do that." Just be like, "Okay, wait a minute. Let's like sit here and try to develop this idea." We both have experience with it. So yeah, we're both kind of invaluable to each other in a way. Yeah, we definitely have a really good thing going. Yeah.
You've talked a few times, today about kind of like the power of the wilderness, and I wonder if you could maybe share, has there been a moment in your journey of the last 7 years, creating videos, like, where the wilderness has really impacted you or changed you in a profound way?
I got a funny one for you. It's funny. I was thinking about this before, and I couldn't really think about it, but now I got I got a funny one. Um, so I don't really like eat much sugar anymore, much candy. And there's a reason why. I had a moment where my brother and I were Xander and I were in Sedona, and the sun was setting, and we're on top of this butte. It's just magnificent. If you've ever been to Sedona, you'll know what I'm talking about. It was just such a vibe. And Xander says to me, he's like, "Man, like I just want to meditate right now. This is just, this is so beautiful. There's beams of light going through the buttes." And I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be amazing. Like I just want to meditate too." And then immediately my mind went to the big ball of gummy worms sitting in my stomach. And there's just kind of this like dissonance where I just feel like, I don't like, why am I putting this into my body? You know, I still do chips quite a bit, but ever since like I kind of been turned off candy. And just like a recognition that, if I open the tub of ice cream, I'm just going to probably finish the tub of ice cream. So that was kind of a moment. That was the closest thing to like a life changing, like one moment experience. But I had, you know, 1,000, profound moments, like of sublime beauty where it's, the, and all of those things over time sort of accumulate and I guess have imprint on your character. Maybe there's like other moments where, I remember one really, really beautiful moment where it's actually also in the Southwest where I think it was at Mesa Verde National Park where it was a family trip. I think I was 17 or 18, and we Mesa Verde is this big mesa, which is it's like I don't know a couple thousand feet high, and we're driving up. We're in the fog, and we've been driving all day, so I kind of needed to get away and just kind of go on a little hike, and I just kind of randomly walked on this hike, and but it was all in the fog, but I just needed to go for a walk. And just walking up, kind of walking through clouds, it's totally foggy, and then I just get to this lookout, and it just breaks, and you get over the clouds. And I remember looking across this plain, and the sun was setting, and off in the distance, there's a mountain chain, and this had to be 50, 60 kilometers away, and in between the mountain chain that where the sun was just setting like over the plains. There was a thunderstorm rolling across the plains, and it was just so magnificent. And it was one of those moments that kind of came out of nowhere and just sort of smacked you in the face. It just, to this day, it just kind of, it still just resonates with me, that thunderstorm moving across the plain. I don't know if there's any lessons there. But that's just an experience that's worth sharing, I think.
Even just hearing about it, I can kind of feel like the calmness coming in. I think that's one of the best parts of nature is just being able to just kind of sit there. Your phone doesn't work, especially if you're there with loved ones. You're just mellow and looking out, and it just kind of feels right on those. I can't explain it, but just life feels right when you get one of those experiences. But they definitely don't happen enough. They're just so nice when they happen.
Absolutely.
Maxim, it was great having you on the show today. Thanks for coming on, talking about canoeing, talking about the beauty of the outdoors, talking a little bit about the behind the scenes of being a YouTube creator. It's been just such a pleasure hearing about your story.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It was my honor, my pleasure to be here.
And if people want to follow along and check out your videos, where can they find you?
YouTube, just my name, Maxim Budnick. And that's the best place to find me. You can also check me out on Instagram, but I'm not nearly as active there.
I'll put links to Maxim's YouTube and Instagram in the show notes. And definitely for a weekend viewing coming up, he has a video called 17 Days in Canada's Middle Earth. And it's just a beautiful video with the incredible cinematography. It's one of those things, if you're looking to chill out on a Friday or Saturday night, put it on and just relax and you won't be disappointed. With that, thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the 10 Adventures podcast. We'll be back next week to explore the world and hear about more epic adventures. Bye-bye.
Start planning your own adventure by visiting us at 10adventures.com and listen to other episodes of the 10 Adventures podcast on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you find your podcasts.